Harmony Lane. Irony dripped from the name like bitter honey. It was supposed to be a haven, a cul-de-sac of manicured lawns and welcoming porches. But on a crisp October morning, the facade crumbled. Janine Catazano vanished, gone, as if she'd never been. A missing person poster soon adorned the local grocery store bulletin board. Her smile, frozen in time, seemed to mock the growing unease in the community. Where was Janine? The neighbors, accustomed to the rhythm of quiet evenings and weekend barbecues, were bewildered. Janine, with her infectious laugh and love for her rose garden, had become a fixture. Her disappearance was like a discordant note in a familiar melody. The police descended upon Harmony Lane, their presence a stark contrast to the tranquil surroundings. The yellow tape, fluttering in the breeze, felt like a macabre decoration. Behind closed doors, whispers turned into rumors. Had Janine simply run away? Or was there something more sinister at play? Janine and Joseph Catazano. On the surface, they were the picture of suburban normalcy. He was a successful accountant, she a devoted homemaker. But beneath the veneer of respectability lurked a darkness. Their relationship was a tempest, marked by periods of calm punctuated by violent storms. Neighbors spoke of heated arguments, the sound of breaking glass piercing the night. Joseph, they said, had a temper, a fuse as short as his patience. There were whispers of past incidents, hushed tones recounting Joseph's run-ins with the law, a bar fight fueled by jealousy and too much alcohol. A restraining order filed by an ex-girlfriend later dropped. Janine, however, remained. She loved him, her friends said, with a fierce loyalty that bordered on blindness. She believed in second chances and the power of forgiveness. But was her faith misplaced? Detective Michael O'Brien, a veteran of countless homicide investigations, felt a familiar weight settle in his gut. The Catazano case had all the hallmarks of a domestic gone wrong. The forced smiles, the carefully constructed facade of a happy marriage. He'd seen it all before. O'Brien knew the importance of psychology in these cases. Joseph, he observed, was a master manipulator, a man accustomed to controlling the narrative. His grief, O'Brien suspected, was a performance, a carefully crafted mask to hide his true nature. The interrogation room became a stage. O'Brien, with his quiet intensity and piercing gaze, was determined to crack Joseph's facade. He employed a mix of empathy and calculated pressure, a delicate dance aimed at eliciting a confession. Days turned into weeks, the investigation stretching on like a taut wire. The forensics team scoured the Catazano home, their instruments humming a silent symphony of suspicion. Every fiber, every hair held the potential to unravel the truth. Joseph, for his part, played the role of the grieving husband to perfection. He granted interviews, his voice thick with fabricated sorrow. He organized candlelight vigils, his eyes reflecting the flickering flames but revealing nothing of the darkness within. But Detective O'Brien refused to be swayed by the charade. He knew that behind the mask of grief, a predator lurked. The evidence, though circumstantial, was mounting. A trail of lies, inconsistencies in Joseph's alibi, a history of violence that couldn't be ignored. The interrogation room became a battleground of wits. O'Brien, patient and relentless, chipped away at Joseph's carefully constructed facade. He presented him with evidence, watched his reactions, listened for the telltale signs of guilt, and then a breakthrough. A single damning piece of evidence discovered in the trunk of Joseph's car, a blood-stained glove hidden beneath a spare tire and a box of old tools. The DNA evidence was irrefutable. The mask of sorrow finally slipped, revealing the monster beneath. In the aftermath of Joseph's arrest, a collective gasp of horror rippled through Harmony Lane. The truth, as it often does, was far more sinister than anyone could have imagined. The man they had known, the one who barbecued on Sundays and waved to their children, was a wolf in sheep's clothing. The case became a morbid obsession for the media, the story splashed across newspapers and dominating the evening news. Pundits dissected the Catazanos' marriage, pointing to the red flags that had been ignored or dismissed. The arguments, the whispers of abuse, Janine's forced smiles. Friends and neighbors, racked with guilt, questioned their own blindness. Had they missed the signs? Could they have done more to help Janine escape the clutches of her abuser? The questions lingered, heavy with regret and a chilling realization. Domestic violence, once a taboo subject, was thrust into the harsh glare of the spotlight. The Catazano case became a cautionary tale, a stark reminder that evil often lurks behind the most ordinary of facades. The trial of Joseph Catazano was a media circus. Cameras crowded the courtroom, their lenses capturing every flicker of emotion, every tear shed, every whispered word. The prosecution, armed with a mountain of evidence, presented a compelling case. They painted Joseph as a monster, a man driven by jealousy and rage. They presented the blood-stained glove, the forensic evidence linking him to the crime scene. They called upon witnesses, neighbors who testified to his violent temper and Janine's fear. The defense, in a desperate attempt to salvage their client's future, argued that the evidence was circumstantial. They claimed that Joseph was a loving husband, a victim of his own grief, wrongly accused of a heinous crime he did not commit. But the jury, their faces etched with the weight of their responsibility, remained unconvinced. After days of deliberation, they returned with a verdict: guilty. A collective sigh of relief filled the courtroom. A small measure of justice served in the face of unimaginable tragedy. Harmony Lane, once a symbol of suburban tranquility, now bore the invisible scars of tragedy. The Catazano house, its windows dark and lifeless, stood as a grim reminder of the darkness that had invaded their idyllic community. The residents, still reeling from the shock, struggled to comprehend how such a horrific crime could have occurred in their midst. The fear, once a distant whisper, now felt palpable, a chilling reminder that evil could lurk even in the most unexpected of places. Support groups sprang up, offering solace and a safe space for survivors of domestic violence to share their stories. The community, once fractured by suspicion and disbelief, began to heal, united in their grief and their determination to prevent such a tragedy from happening again. Janine's memory lived on, not as a victim, but as a symbol of strength and resilience. Her story, though tragic, became a catalyst for change, a reminder that silence only empowers abusers and that speaking out can save lives. Joseph Catazano, his face now etched with the reality of his conviction, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. The judge, in her closing remarks, called his crime brutal, cowardly, and a betrayal of the sacred trust between husband and wife. For Janine's loved ones, the sentence brought a sense of closure, a bittersweet victory in the face of unimaginable loss. Her parents, their faces etched with grief, spoke of their daughter's kind heart, her infectious laugh, and the void her absence had left in their lives. But justice, they knew, was more than a prison sentence. It was about honoring Janine's memory by fighting for a world where domestic violence was not tolerated, where victims felt empowered to speak out, and where help was readily available. And so, they channeled their grief into action, establishing a foundation in Janine's name to raise awareness about domestic violence, provide support for victims, and advocate for stricter laws to protect those most vulnerable. The Janine Catazano case serves as a stark reminder that domestic violence can affect anyone, regardless of socioeconomic status, race, or religion. It thrives in silence, in the shadows of secrecy and shame. Breaking that silence is the first step towards prevention. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please know that you are not alone. There are resources available to help you escape the cycle of abuse and rebuild your life. Reach out to a trusted friend, family member, or domestic violence hotline. Remember that abuse is never the victim's fault. You deserve to live a life free from fear and violence. There is hope, there is help, and there is a future beyond the darkness. The fight against domestic violence requires a collective effort. Educate yourself about the signs of abuse, challenge societal norms that perpetuate violence against women, and support organizations working to end this epidemic. Janine Catazano's legacy extends far beyond the tragedy of her death. She has become a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can endure. Her story, though heartbreaking, has ignited a spark of awareness, a call to action that resonates far beyond the confines of Harmony Lane. Let us remember Janine not for how she died, but for how she lived, with kindness, compassion, and an unwavering belief in the power of love. Let her story serve as a beacon of hope, guiding us towards a future where domestic violence is eradicated, and all individuals can live in safety and dignity. In her memory, let us pledge to break the silence, to be a voice for the voiceless, and to create a world where love, not violence, prevails. For Janine and for all victims of domestic abuse, let us choose hope over despair, action over apathy, and love over fear.